welcome to this episode of Athletics for Life. It's good to see you again, Jeff. I know we get to chat once in a while, so it's always nice. We're kind of in the comfort of our own homes. And we've got a pretty awesome guest today. Do you want to share a little bit more about him?
Yeah, we are very fortunate to have Mr. Alex Heikens on our podcast today. Alex has been appointed as the representative of the United Nations Children's Fund here in Mongolia since 2017. I've worked very close with him because his two daughters are at the International School of Ulaanbaatar.
Awesome.
And he led the development and implementation of UNICEF's policy on climate change, energy, and environmental sustainability.
That's awesome. I know we know a little bit about him. I know that he was involved in martial arts. He's got quite a background in martial arts. So as a wrestler, I'm pretty excited to talk to him and hear more about his philosophy with martial arts and his approach and how that's hopefully carried over to what he does today and how that's stuck with him.
Talking about this podcast with Alex, he was sharing with me that he would like to talk more about his martial arts background instead of UNICEF.
I'm sure.
He loves martial arts. He started very young with karate, and he will talk more about what he's done. A lot of different martial arts, but he's very into jiu-jitsu now and still in kickboxing. And his daughters are doing Muay Thai and BJJ. And he wants to share more about the philosophy and why he values it so much. So it's going to be an interesting talk with Alex today.
No, that's great. Can't wait.
Hello, Alex.
Hey guys.
Hey, how's it going?
How's it going?
All good. It looks like everybody decided to wear black for the interview.
Yep, there we go.
Color coded.
Whole special setup for you here, Alex. So pretty cool. So let's get started. Thank you for your time, Alex, on this lovely Saturday afternoon.
All right. Well, Alex, this is my first time meeting you and getting to talk to you. I know Jeff knows you fairly well. He said your daughters go to the school. So can you just take a little bit and introduce yourself for me and anyone else?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Alex. I've been in Mongolia now for about three and a half years. Living abroad actually since early 2004, so it's been a while. I work for UNICEF. I'm the country director over here. For UNICEF, everything for children, that's our job, that's what we work for. And then indeed on a personal note, yes, married, two girls, 15 and 17.
Oh, wow.
And it's for them, they've always been living abroad more or less. And that's what we do. We kind of, modern nomads, I guess, global nomads, like many of you guys as well as teachers at international school. And in the Netherlands, I was born in a small city and then moved to Utrecht, where I studied. And that's where I met my wife. That's where my oldest was born. And that's also where I really got into sports. So that's where, in many ways, life really started.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. That's what we want to talk to you about today.
Mm-hmm.
So what sports were you interested in, Jeff? Or not interested in, involved in? Jeff had mentioned you had a bit of a martial arts background.
Yep.
How did you get started with that?
Actually, I wanted to start really early when I was 12 or something. I was really interested in it. And then I discussed it with my parents and they were like, no, that is not going to happen. And I think the main reason was that they were just really not familiar with it. And it scared them off. They thought it's about fighting. I wanted to do karate. I knew that was around, there was possible, it was a dojo in my city. And for my parents, because they had no clue what it was, they associated it with violence and aggression. They said, no way, it's not going to happen. So then I had to wait until I started to study in Utrecht. And then at university, away from mom and dad, there was a good opportunity to start karate. There was a very good teacher at university. And I was 19 when I started. And at the same time, I also started swimming. A friend of mine at school, at university, he really taught me how to swim. So it was at that time 4 times a week swimming, 3 times a week karate, and that's where it started. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, Alex, in our pre-podcast email conversation, you talked that you stopped karate because of the belt system and the competition aspect of it. Can you explain a little bit of why you stopped karate and you went into other martial arts?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was not really that I stopped because of that. It had, I mean, there were different aspects to it. I was training a lot, and I was just not very interested in doing competition. I was very busy with my studies, and I didn't feel it would add anything. I just my mindset was not for that. It was really, stress relief, just getting better in terms of technique. And of course, you do your light sparring during the training sessions, and that was perfectly fine for me. I did not need more than that. But over the years, I did get a little bit more kind of, I started to look around, or became a little bit less interested in karate. And indeed, it had to do with the belt system. One of my frustrations was that I saw that some people, they were just really good at doing exams, but that did not make them a good martial artist. They were just good at doing exams. So then you had some people walking around with a black belt, and I was like, well, I know you got the belt, but I don't know if you really are a very good karateka. So at that time, I stopped doing belts when I had the third Q, brown belt, and then I was still continuing doing martial karate. I was just not going for the belts anymore. And then at some point, I mean, I also started to work and started to do my PhD, and then just got really busy. And then it started to slip a little bit. Also, the team was changing. The motivation was different. Some of the guys that I could really work with very well, and also the girls, they had moved on. So I just lost my motivation. And then on top of that, then at some point, the really kind of the change was that for my PhD work, I had to do a lot of work abroad, and then I just kind of gave up on the whole thing. And then at some point, PhD work was finished, and we moved to Bangladesh for my work. We had children, and then you feel like you don't have time for it anymore. And then after a couple of years, I felt like, okay, I'm gaining weight, I'm getting weaker. And not only physically, but also mentally, I was not feeling very well. And then I was at that time in Thailand, where then I started doing karate initially again, because that's where you come from, so that's you don't forget your roots. And at the same time, I was like, okay, well, this dojo is not fantastic, but at least it's something. And then within a year, I did the 2 other belts. So the second Q and the first Q, and for me, it really proved that it just made no sense doing exams, because it was just too easy to get through the exam and get a belt. And then I was talking with one of the other guys, and he told me he was doing Muay Thai. And I was looking at myself like, why am I still doing karate? I live in Thailand. Why am I not doing Muay Thai? What's wrong with me? So I made the switch. I started training. I found the dojo literally next to my apartment where I was living.
Oh, wow.
And that was it. And since then, I've been doing a lot of Muay Thai. It was back in 2000. That was actually in 2011 or something. And before that, I had a brief stint in Indonesia with Kendo, which was also really interesting, completely different. I think what was really fascinating for me about Kendo was that the community that the Kendo community was a very traditional Japanese community. And mostly, well, all of them were men. And the first time that my wife, she also joined at that time. The first time that we went, where we were with about 12 or 13 people, I think, and excluding ourselves. And the 12 of them together had 360 years of experience.
Oh, geez.
So yeah, then you do the math. You're like, okay, so many of you guys, you're like in your 40s, and then adding it up. So you started when you were like 5. Yes, that's true. Many of them started when they were 5, and for them, it was just, it was more, it was, that was not a sport. That was really, that's almost kind of a religion. And
Mhm.
there were many of them were training 7 days a week, 2 3 days, 2 3 hours per day, and just endless repetition. But that was very, very traditional, but in many ways very interesting as well. And yeah, the amount of time and energy and commitment that these guys showed was just absolutely incredible. But of course, that's also what I saw with some of the really good karatekas, and also my one of my former teachers. He was the coach of the Dutch team, and also with Muay Thai. The guys, they just train so much, and they just only with that commitment, of course, then you become really, really good. And it's such a pleasure to work with people who are so committed and so good at what they do, and love their sport so much. So yeah, but it's been a very interesting journey. And now here in Mongolia, also doing again Muay Thai. It was very funny to find, a place in Mongolia where I could do Muay Thai. I was really not expecting that. And then recently, I also started Brazilian Jiu-jitsu at the same school.
Okay.
Again, just to continue to diversify. And it's also really good for my back, I found out.
What
So that's not a
school
good
is
reason.
that, Alex? If you don't mind me asking. Where
Garuda.
did you? Okay. I used to go to Garuda maybe 4 years ago, and I
Okay.
actually got my wife involved doing jujitsu.
Yeah.
I come from a wrestling background, and
Yeah.
when I first got here, I was training a little bit, but it was just too hard on my body, getting thrown around. And jujitsu was kind of nice as I was getting older. I'm not too old yet, but it just didn't hurt as
You have to
much, you
adjust.
know.
You have to adjust what you do.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
you mentioned you have two girls, and when you first started off, you felt like you didn't have any time.
Hmm.
That's kind of where I'm at now. I have two young daughters,
Uh-huh.
2 years old and under a year old, 7 months old. Um, how did you kind of work that into your life again? At
Hmm.
what point did you say, okay, I really have to start working out? You said you noticed you gained a little weight, you weren't as sharp. Um, but then kind of walk us through that time in your life and how you made the switch back to martial arts.
Yeah, I now I remember it was actually when we from Bangladesh, we were very briefly in Thailand, and at that time I did not restart the martial arts, and then we moved to Indonesia, and it was actually that kendo that brought me back into martial arts. And that was 2007. The girls were about 5 and 3 years old, and I found out that this kendo club was just across my office. And then I was like, okay, well, if it's just across my office, why not on the way out, stop by the gym and then continue home? And I think that's something that I've been continuing to do since then, is really make it part of your routine, kind of between office and home. You stop by the gym and then you're home. For me, it's just
Mhm.
impossible first to go home and then kind of, hang out with the family, on the couch, have dinner, and then you go to the gym. No, that's just not working. It does not work for me. But what I really like about the routine is it really gives you that opportunity, first of all, to just have that 1 hour really just for yourself. I
Mhm.
dearly love my family. I love my colleagues, but it's nice just to have that moment for yourself and do your own thing. And it helps you to unwind, to relax, get the stress out of your body of the whole day. Uh, and then by the time I get home, I'm much more relaxed. Mentally, I'm more relaxed. Physically, I'm in a good way. I'm tired, and that then just makes life better, and not just for me, but also for the rest of the family.
Oh, for
So
sure.
yeah, really integrating that in your daily routine and finding those 2 3 hours per week. On Saturday, the same thing. Just escape for those 1.5 2 hours. It really helps. And yeah, finding a dojo that is kind of on the way home, it makes life good. Yes.
Oh,
Hmm.
definitely.
Hmm.
Alex, both your daughters are into martial arts, and I know they both really enjoy it. But you also do not force them, but you support them in their martial arts journey. Can you explain us why you support your daughters into jiu-jitsu and into their Muay Thai training?
Yeah.
Into such a violent sport like your parents would have thought. You know?
Yeah. Well, at
Yeah.
some point they also did a couple of lessons MMA, which was quite hilarious. Like
Okay.
a 5-year-old hammer fisting a bag. It's good fun to see with two little ponytails. Yeah, but no, but there was. I mean, the whole idea was, and they started when they were much younger, when they were really small. My wife and I, we both really enjoy martial arts, and my wife stopped because of a severe knee injury many years ago. Uh, so we said, well, it's a sport that's not just really just kind of fun to do and to practice, but it also really builds self-confidence. It makes your body and your mind stronger. And when you're getting into a difficult situation, first of all, because you will come across as more self-confident, the risk that it escalates is actually smaller. And if it does escalate, then you can handle yourself. And I think, with girls, I think arguably it's even more important, but also for boys it's important to be able to grow as a person, to be kind of respectful, because the dojo is all about respect. A good dojo, at least, is all about respect. Respect for the dojo, respect for the teacher, respect for the martial arts, respect for your fellow students. And I always say it's in a way it's the ultimate team sport, because if you're not a team player, you're going to do a lot of damage, and that's not what you want. That's not what you should be willing, because then you can't learn, and it's no fun. But it's only with really good teamwork, and you really learn on how far you can go with the person that you're working with, whether it's someone who is better than you or someone who is a beginner. Then together you can really grow. So I think that's another aspect that I find very important of martial arts. And for the girls, indeed, they started when they were 4 years old. At that time, we were in I don't know where we were. I think it was Bangkok, and they started with taekwondo, because that was because you have to also look at kind of what's available in the neighborhoods, and there were not many options for very young children. And in a way, I never told them that they have to train like 10 hours per week. They don't have to become a professional, but we did make it clear to them, 1 hour per week. That's all I'm asking. And for the rest, you can do whatever sports you want. Whether it's football or swimming or volleyball, basketball, anything. And I will support you as long as you also do that 1 hour. And let's just say for the time being that you do it for me, so that I feel that you guys also grow stronger and fitter and more self-confident. And the more or less they've been doing that over the years, and sometimes with more pleasure than other times. But overall, it's been a really interesting journey with the girls. And by now, my oldest, she's really into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. She really loves it. And sometimes I roll with her, and usually I lose badly. I I don't stand much of a chance, to be frank. Sometimes I can muscle myself out of it, but of course that's not fair sports. That's just muscle power. It has nothing to do with technique. And my youngest with Muay Thai, her kicks and punches are incredibly powerful. And that's good to see. And at the same time, of course, for her real passion is volleyball and football, and we also give her all the room for that, as long as of course things are going well with the grades at school. But it's not only the academic learning is important. It's also really sports that I feel is very important for students, and of course the social aspects as well at school. So it's that combination of these things that need to come together in the right way.
We sometimes we deal with parents, a lot of athletes, and especially girls' parents. They often have these misconceptions that maybe sports aren't for girls, and we don't offer combat sports. We don't offer martial arts with football, basketball, volleyball. What would you say to parents who maybe have some of these misconceptions, whether it's for boys or for girls, but just about well, my son or daughter shouldn't play sports. They need to study. They shouldn't do martial arts because it's violent. What would you say to parents who have some of these thoughts?
Yeah, I think sports in general, if we start there, I think that's the easy entry point. Um, how I look at it also for myself, if I sport a lot, I do better at my work. If
Mm-hmm.
I sport a lot, I do better at home, because I feel better. My mind is more clear, and I can do a better job. And the same when you're a student. If you have those few hours per week that you can just turn off your brain and really kind of recharge your battery, you will most likely do better also academically. So I think it's even if as a parent, if you like, no, it's all about the academic performance. I think, and I absolutely believe that sports can help with the academic performance as well. Here we have a typical, Zoom situation here with cats
Yeah.
showing up. So, well, they're part of the family. Uh, and then with martial arts, I think again there are indeed a lot of misconceptions, and it starts with that all martial arts are about fighting, which I seriously disagree with. Of course, there are gyms that are not the ones that you want to send your children to. There are gyms, dojos that I don't want to go to. I've been to a few, and like you train 1 hour and you're like, okay, this is the first and the last time I'll be here, because the only thing that you guys are busy with is your ego and indeed fighting, and that's not what I'm going for. So like with any sport, you have to find a place that really fits you and your objectives. And I think that with many of the martial arts, especially if you look at the traditional martial arts, like karate and judo and jiu-jitsu, the whole philosophy starts with respect, and with respect again for the teacher and for your fellow students. It's not about violence and fighting, and you can train a lot without doing
Wow.
any with without doing any fighting. So it's not about fighting. It's about a discipline. It's about learning the techniques. It's about very good teamwork. And it also, on top of that, indeed, if you are in a difficult situation, you can handle yourself. And it's always a good story that one day, uh, Rose at school, not here, many years ago when she was 9, she got herself somehow. She was in a difficult situation in a library that 3 boys harassed her, and well, she took care of it. And then yeah, of course, the school director asked me, well, why did your girl beat up those boys? I said, well, because they harassed her. She had to defend herself. And I was very happy that she was able to do that. So she did not become a victim. So I think, first of all, if we look at sports, it's about your overall well-being. That really benefits from sports. Your academic performance will likely also do well, as long as you balance, of course, the amount of time that you invest in sports vis-a-vis your homework. And sometimes that may be difficult. I think with martial arts, it really, for me, it brings that aspect of discipline, of perseverance, of respect. I think for me, perseverance is one of the things that I really also myself that I learned from martial arts. The endless drills that you do. You don't do 1,000 techniques. No, you do one technique 10,000 times, and that's
Mm-hmm.
how you get better and better and better. So also learning to concentrate and to focus on perfection. So all these things, you don't see that maybe in the movies, but you really do get that away from training sports, and especially from training martial arts.
Alex,
Most
in the
definitely.
international school world, we're pretty traditional with our sports, right? So we have the core sports of volleyball, basketball, and soccer. Um, we have swimming on the program, but not much martial arts. What kind of martial arts would you would tell the schools to implement as part of the program? Is there a specific martial art that you say that the kids would benefit from that martial art most than something else?
Hmm. Yeah, it's difficult because different martial arts bring something different, and not every martial art is for everybody. Because, for example, with jiu-jitsu and with judo, there is a lot of physical contact, and like kind of, being on top of each other. That may not be a very desirable situation for many teenagers. They may feel very uncomfortable in that situation if you have not specifically chosen for that sports. So I think that's also that learning aspect. You may not want to start immediately with that. Then, of course, you have sports like taekwondo or karate, where you don't have that issue. So in that sense, it could be a little bit kind of easier entry point into martial arts. But then again, kicking and punching is not for everybody, because they're just very different sports. For me, I mean, boxing, of course, is another very well-known martial art. But for me, it's a little bit too limited for myself, at least, because you only work with your arms. I like to have kind of a full body workout. But maybe if I think about a full body workout and learning kind of many really improving your motor skills, I would say that probably jiu-jitsu is one of the best. Because it's both, it's stand up, it's on the ground. The diversity is tremendous. You have endless number of combinations. If you look at karate or Muay Thai, well, with Muay Thai you basically have like 8-9 techniques and that's it, and you just become really good at it, and that's it. With jiu-jitsu, it's the variations and how you make all these different combinations into a new combination. I think, and you use every muscle in your body more or less. So I think that's what I really like about jiu-jitsu. Also, if I would think about the school, then yeah, as a teacher at school, you have to figure out how do you deal with the boy and the girl situation. And that may be a little bit easier when you do, for example, Muay Thai or karate. I think that's, for me, I would earlier go. Well, yeah, it's difficult to say. With karate, I think the advantage is that there's a very clear system in place. Yes, there are belts, so you can at least in the beginning you have points kind of to measure progress. It's one way of measuring progress, so I think that helps with taking a very structured approach to it. I think Muay Thai in that way is less structured. I trained in many different places, and everybody has a completely different spin on it. On how they teach. So I don't know if there's an kind of an easy kind of go to Amazon.com and get yourself a manual how to teach Muay Thai. So doing that in a structured way, I think, would take a little bit more time. But on the other hand, I think Muay Thai is maybe a little bit more fun, I would say. With the gloves and with the pads, because that's not what you use with standard kind of karate teaching, at least how I got it, but that's been like 20 years ago. So I don't know to what extent karate has evolved over the last 1.5, 2 decades in terms of teaching methods, because otherwise I think karate could be a little bit kind of less exciting these days for kids. Because you need to know where they're coming from in terms of what do they see on TV, what do they know about martial arts, what do they connect with, what looks cool, what looks interesting to them. So yeah, that I think those 3 options, or 2 or 3 options, Muay Thai, BJJ, and perhaps karate, would be interesting to explore. I don't know too much about Taekwondo. It's just not my thing. I've seen it a few times. I'm sure that it will be. I mean, it's very well developed, obviously, so that would be would make it a bit easier for teachers to give it a go. But yeah, I think it's also really, if you want to look at it from a kind of an academic kind of learning perspective, yeah, that's where professionals like you guys need to look at it, and not only as me as a practitioner.
Most definitely. One thing I want to comment on is just you mentioned a few times how it helps clear your mind, and then in jiu-jitsu how you get in so many different situations and combinations. And that's one thing that I really enjoyed with jiu-jitsu is just kind of when you get with somebody and you just roll and you get kind of into the flow, right? And you're just kind of going back and forth, and it's almost it's almost like a dance. You know, you're both on the
Yeah.
ground, you're rolling around, you've got his ankle over your head, and you've
Mm-hmm.
just forgotten about everything else, and you're just kind of in the present moment.
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing that I really enjoyed about jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
My wife was kind of like those parents. Actually got her involved in jiu-jitsu a little bit too.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
She was very much like, oh, it's violent, it's sweaty, we have to touch each other. Um,
Yeah, that's exactly
but
it. It's
then,
not for everybody. Yeah.
yeah, but at
Mm-hmm.
first that was her mindset, and then after
Ah,
going a
good.
few times and actually like learning a few things and getting to choke me out and practice on me a little bit,
And
she
then the
really
fun
enjoyed it.
starts.
You know,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Jiu-jitsu
Yeah,
was
but
good. It
indeed,
was really
it's
fun.
it's definitely something where you need to go through it, and in the beginning, like, okay, so you're on top of each other, and then you look at it, okay, that's kind of weird. But when you're in it, I mean, you don't have time to think about a sweaty armpit or something. No, because if you think about that, you will be choked out.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, yep, that's when you kind of let go of whatever has happened that day in your mind. And the same is when I'm sparring Muay Thai with my trainer. Yeah, if I think too much about work, well, he probably will punch me a few times when I'm thinking
Yep,
about the
yep.
latest email. So you just can't afford it, and you don't want it, and then you get into that flow, into the rhythm, and then you finally, when the round is over, then you feel really good. It's very, even if you've lost badly, it still feels good. You know that.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
most
Alex,
definitely.
we're nearing the end of our interview. Our podcast is all about the educational-based athletics philosophy,
Mhm.
sports as a tool for life skills. If there any parents, students are watching, what would you give them as the main life skill that martial arts teach you?
Mhm. I think for uh, for children and including for myself, although I started a bit later when I was 19, of course. Uh, it's respect, it's discipline, it's focus, and it's perseverance, and clearing your mind. I think those five things for me are the real kind of takeaways. And as long as I can stand on my feet, I will continue with martial arts, because it really it's part of my life. It's part of who I am. That's what has happened with it. Mhm.
Most definitely. Well,
Mhm.
yeah, thanks, Alex, for coming on. We really appreciate it.
Mhm.
It's fun to talk to people who have a similar background to myself in
Mhm.
kind of martial arts training and combat sports training. Because yeah, that's a lot of what you had mentioned was what I took away from my experience as well. So
Mhm.
it's always great to talk about.
Yeah, thank you, Alex, for your time. We really appreciate it, and yeah, we wish you a
Mhm.
good Saturday afternoon.
Yes, you too, guys, and all the best with the challenging times of teaching online. I think that for sports it's even more difficult than for any other subject. I just had what was it, earlier this week, my first BJJ lesson online, which is kind of interesting.
Saw that.
Uh,
Yeah.
but we make it work, man. That's what we got to do. That is important.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
because it again, and also we started doing online yoga again, just to keep stretching, and also for your mindset. So I think these things are really important in these difficult times, because it's so easy to forget the physical part of being kind of locked up at home. And I think for
Mhm.
kids, it's so important to continue somehow. Yeah, so finding creative ways of doing that, in our family, but also for you guys with your students. And I also hope that parents will really find ways of stimulating their children at home to exercise and to eat healthy, because they definitely need it with kind of 20 meters up and down the house that you can walk, and that's it. So yeah, all the best to you guys as well, and thank you so much for reaching out.
So we just interviewed Alex Heikens, the director of UNICEF here in Mongolia. Um, and it was awesome to get to talk about his martial arts background. And, I didn't realize he didn't start till he was 19.
Yeah.
And I had a little bit of the same thing with my parents when I first started wrestling, but they didn't stop me from wrestling. They were concerned, but they let me try it. But I'm glad that he was able to find it and take so much away from it, even though he did start a little bit later. And it seems like because of that, his daughters have been able to get involved and kind of learn some of those same things: respect, discipline, self-confidence, that you can get from a combat sport and from sports.
Yeah, it's great to have him on the podcast. And I had a quote here from UNICEF that I wanted to share with him, but it says, "Play has the power to transform and improve the lives of children." And he was talking about the rolling part of jiu-jitsu, right? That's all about playing together.
It
The
really is.
sport it is about. And his daughter is big on the jiu-jitsu, and we talked about to tap out. So all our sports is a lot ego driven, right? Scoring a spike, and when you have to tap out, you have to let the ego go. That's all about what you
Yeah.
up, right?
It's you either let the ego go or you pass out. It's one of the two. Yeah. No, it was great. Even just hearing him talk about just, letting everything go in your mind. I can remember when I was in college getting in fights with my girlfriend at the time, or whatever issues were going on. And then I go to wrestling practice, clear my mind, and I come out and forget I had been in a fight. And why are you so mad? What's the problem? But these sports can do that. They can just kind of help you deal with your stress, clear your mind, get your thoughts in order. So that way you can handle your problems. You can handle stressful situations.
And I think it is important to, when he talked about the international school circuit, that we need to look into implementing some kind of martial arts, not for the sport specific, but for all the life skills that they bring. Every country has their own specific martial arts, right? It's also a way to connect. We are big here on the Mongolian wrestling. It's also part of a culture that kids learn from that, and I think we should look into that, and more schools around the world to implement more of those martial arts into their programs.
Yeah, it's even like the Mike Tyson quote you shared before we started the interview off camera. You had mentioned, everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth or punched in the head. So like it's good to have to deal with that. You get on wrestling, you get tossed to your back, or jiu-jitsu, you have to tap out, or boxing, you get punched in the face. What are you going to do now? How do you bounce back? So
and especially that resilience, right? And our kids sometimes struggle with that when they lose a game, or that resilience. And I think martial arts could be very, very beneficial for our kids as an extra life skills builder. So we are definitely going to look into that, CD, for our division.
Most definitely.
Most definitely. Again, we thank Alex Heikens for being on our podcast. It's great to talk to him. And yeah.
Thank you everyone for watching. We appreciate it. Like and subscribe down below. That'll help us reach more people. And if you liked what you saw, share it with somebody. Just say, hey, this was a good interview. If you're interested in martial arts as a student, and your parents maybe have some of those same views that Alex's parents had, maybe share this video with them and they might change their mind. So thank you everyone for watching, and until next time.